Everybody, welcome back. I'm going to introduce our afternoon speaker now, our very own digital doctor. That's GP Dr. Stuart Berry. He's one of the UK's probably most active GPs on Twitter. He's based up in Pendle in East Lancashire. Looking through his latest tweets, you can read health advice, especially about stop smoking, because he's a COPD lead. Job adverts, signposting, he's really good at that, to good blogs and videos. He's a real sharer, shares lots of great tips on using social media, definitely a campaigner. And I think he enjoys running in the hills, or to the hills. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Hello everyone. Oh, sorry, that's a bit loud. So, hi. My name is Dr. Stuart Berry, and I'm a GP who's been dabbling with social media over the past 5 years. I've been invited here today by Caroline Kenyon to talk about social media from a GP's perspective, why I use it, how I use it, and what I feel my patients get out of it. I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to come along here today to have a listen to what ideas people have about how we could make more use of the opportunities that social media offers. So, why does a GP bother to tweet? There are many reasons. It's a complicated mixture of entertainment, professional development, networking, and feeling connected to the wider world. Yes, there are some risks associated with using social media, but I believe these things can be managed. I'm going to start off by giving you a bit of background about myself, some of the statistics and metrics from the sites that I use and work with. I'm then going to go on to talk a bit about tribes, the different tribes that we're all a part of. I'm a member of the GP tribe, I'm a member of the NHS tribe, etc. I see Twitter as being a bit like one massive, huge tribe with many different sub-tribes within it. I'm going to finish off with some suggestions for how I feel we could generate more value from our use of social media. So, a bit of background about me. I'm a GP in a town called Nelson, which is in Pendle in East Lancashire. We have 11,000 patients at my practice across 2 sites, one in Nelson and one in Barrowford, next door. Nelson is a typical northern mill town on the Leeds to Liverpool Canal. We've got lots of terraced housing, some really great parks, and our high street in Nelson was recently featured in the Portes TV show. Barrowford is next to Nelson and tends to be more affluent with quite a good selection of designer shops and fancy food places. My normal working week is split between having 3 days a week as a GP at Readerford Healthcare. I have 1 day a week as a locality lead for Pendle, part of East Lancs CCG, and then I have half a day in my respiratory lead role. So, to start off with some statistics, I sent my first tweet in June 2011 after becoming interested in some ideas I came across on the internet about behaviour change, exercise and social marketing. I came up with the idea of running a weight loss challenge at the practice, and I was trying to find ways of reaching out to the wider community to kind of recruit people to the weight loss challenge without having to spend too much money. The weight loss challenge turned out to be a success. We had 68 people taking part. I have tweeted some links to that. I'm not going to talk about that now. In order to promote this weight loss challenge, I got in touch with the CCG, the Clinical Commissioning Group's communication team for some advice. It was David Rogers, also known as Dances with Comms on Twitter, who opened up the idea to me about getting involved in social media, writing a blog or a website. I ended up setting up a blog, taught myself a bit about how to use WordPress, and went on to help co-produce a patient information site for local use. I currently oversee our practice website with some support from Digital Nomads and Ken Eastwood, and I also run our practice Facebook and Twitter account. But to be honest, Twitter is the place where I spend most of my time, on my personal Twitter account. So let's start off with some numbers. Social media channels have some useful tools that you can use for getting an idea about what sort of impact you're having with using those channels. I hadn't looked at these tools in much detail before, but when I did have a look at them, because I was doing this talk, I thought it was quite useful. I'm going to show you my best statistics first, and then move on to some of my less good ones. Twitter is my most used platform. I use it for news, entertainment and networking, both with people I work with in my local health economy, and also with people in other parts of the UK or around the world who have similar interests. On my Twitter account, I've got 17,000 followers, and the following slide, this slide, is a summary of activity over a 28-day period. I was quite surprised when I looked at this on Twitter, and it showed I have 155,000 impressions over a 28-day period, with 2,300 people visiting my profile in that time. This was my best performing tweet of November. 2,000 impressions, and that was a substantial, I believe that's in quite a big part down to the 10 retweets and the 5 likes. So sharing makes a big difference. Part of my job as a GP, I believe, is in selling health. I believe that I'm in the job of sales. Twitter can help me sell the benefits of stopping smoking, especially when it's helped along by those retweets. Retweets and likes are a big part of getting the health information shared around, and I'm really grateful to everyone that helps me get the messages spread around there. These are my most interacted with tweets. What I found interesting was that the ones that are considered to be the most active have about 1% of people interacting with them. Could I just have a show of hands in the room? Do people know are people familiar with what an impression is, as far as tweets go? Okay, so I believe an impression is something where someone actually looks at the tweet, and an engagement is when someone does something with that tweet. So, for those that didn't put their hand up. Numbers aren't everything. So where are my Twitter followers from? I thought from a communications side of things, you might be interested to know that 81% of my followers are from the UK, 73% are from England, 14% from the Northwest, and 16% from America. Compared to the practice Twitter account, where we have 88% from the UK, 34%, so a bigger proportion from the Northwest. But note that we've only got 1% of people following the practice Twitter account who are aged over 65. This is looking at our Facebook profile. So our practice Facebook, the demographics of the people following our Facebook page reflect the demographics to a reasonable extent of our patients. We have 242 people liking our practice Facebook page. 170 of these people live in the catchment area of our practice. Now this slide was particularly interesting to the Care Quality Commission when they came along and they were asking me about what were we doing to engage with our patients, for like health promotion, etc. There's a huge untapped potential We haven't really been promoting Facebook at our practice. According to the Facebook site, it mentions that there are 60,000 people using Facebook each week who come within 5 kilometres of our practice. If you bear in mind there are 90,000 people in the locality of Pendle, that's a fair old proportion. We just need to figure out how to make more use of Facebook as a channel. So, why do I use social media? Different reasons. Entertainment, news, horizon scanning, taking part in discussions. What I find useful about Twitter is I can do it at my own pace. I can fit it in when I've got some free time. I can take it at my own pace. I don't feel under pressure to fit it into my working schedule. It's just something I do as an entertainment, really, I suppose. I use social media to raise awareness of things that are important to me. So these are the things that I promote, share, retweet, etc. And it helps me to feel like I'm part of some bigger picture. And this is an example of a visualization tool. I did tweet the link to this over the weekend. The vast majority of the names over here are people that are closely associated with East Lancs CCG. So this is an example of how we're all kind of connected in the same place. So how do I use social media? Well, I try to make use of hashtags. I use Twitter lists, which I really recommend getting into, figuring out how to use Twitter lists if you don't already. I'm following so many people, it's just really easy for me to miss tweets from people that I really want to see if I just rely on my Twitter feed. So I make use of Twitter lists for the CCG and for respiratory things. I have been using something called Tweet Jukebox, which is now called Social Media Jukebox. Again, I've tweeted a link to that. What Social Media Jukebox does is it enables me to create like a slide deck of tweets that get put out at random intervals. You can kind of specify how frequently you put the slide out, but what it enables me to do is to have some ready-made content that can go out at intervals, pushing those messages like stopping smoking, the benefits of being involved with Breathe Easy groups, etc. But in between those pre-populated tweets, I can just tweet like a normal person. So hopefully the Twitter stream from me looks like it's a normal person and is vaguely entertaining. I also specifically go looking to places like our local council. So Pendle Council have a Twitter account. They have a Facebook account. I specifically take myself to those sites so that I can see what's going on in my local area. Sharing is caring. I recommend it, and it's useful. And I think if every one of us in this room, if we all engaged and encouraged our colleagues to create accounts and get involved in sharing the content, we would be able to make more use of social media. One way of understanding how and why people use social media is to think about the ideas of tribes. Think about the idea of tribes. Has anyone here heard about tribes in this context before? Could you put your hand up if you've heard about tribes? So just a couple, maybe 5 people in the room? Okay, so I came across a TED talk about tribes by Seth Godin, and I felt it fitted in well with what we're trying to do with social media. Seth says that a group needs only 2 things to be a tribe: a shared interest and a way to communicate. Social media is one of the ways we can support that communication. I recognise that there are some good things out there in the community that people don't know about. For example, Breathe Easy groups for patients with COPD. Helping people to help themselves is a key part of the idea behind self-care and self-management. It is in my interest as a GP to be able to link up my patients with the resources and tools, many of which are already out there, so that they can take a more active and informed role in managing their long-term condition. So, what do I think my patients get out of social media? I believe my patients could benefit from being part of a tribe, being part of a group of individuals who share a common experience. Social media offers the opportunity for members of that tribe to connect. There are many aspects of social media that benefit patients. However, I feel that it's the tribal aspects of social media that offer the greatest potential for my patients. Social media has the potential to help them to feel less isolated, more knowledgeable, and more aware of the groups, clubs, and things that are out there that they could be a part of. Exactly the sorts of things that we heard about with the renal patients in Manchester. These are the tribes I'm part of. NHS, people interested in technology, GP tribe. What tribes are you a part of? Are you a member of the nursing tribe? Are you a member of a footballing tribe? It's a bit hard to see. That's a picture of a well-known football club, close to here, I believe. So, how do you stay up to date with other members of your tribe? How are you connected with them? How do you contribute to the conversations within your tribe, within your group? What do you get out of being a part of the tribe? Why do you bother? How can you attract more people to your tribe? Successful tribes are great at communicating, and Seth Godin mentions there's basically 4 main types of communication that go on. I'd like you to think about the tribes that you're a part of and just consider, how does the leader communicate with the followers? How do the followers communicate with the leaders? And how do members of your tribe, your community, how do your members communicate with one another? And then the last kind of communication, but perhaps one of the most important, I feel, is the communication that goes on between people within your tribe and the people who aren't a part of that tribe yet. How do you recruit more people to take part in your Breathe Easy group, for example? I'm going to end with a couple of suggestions for how we could make more use of social media. I think it would be great if every department, organisation and patient group had its own website, Facebook and Twitter account, which they could use to post and repost and share stuff. I think it'd be great if they were able to do that themselves. So there's something about how do we get ordinary members of the public being able to use these channels effectively. How can we support them? Hashtags. I love it when I see a great hashtag that I can remember. And I think it's really useful if we can use hashtags that feature a location, a hashtag that makes sense to people. This idea about sharing is so important. If for example, if your local council was able to promote some of your health messages, maybe the people who work in health would be more eager to promote some of the messages that are important to the council. Nothing is fixed. I think it's one of the great things with social media is you can just have a go. Just try it. Just do it. Thank you for listening. Please feel free to say hi to me on Twitter. And have you got any questions?
Try not to trip over. Wrong glasses on. Here we go.
Thank you very much, Stuart. How do your GP colleagues view your use of social media? Are you seen as a bit of a freak, as an early adopter, and there it's all a bit strange to them, or are they on board with what you're doing?
I think initially I was probably seen as a bit of a freak, and I certainly am an early adopter. I think now I've got more colleagues that are on Twitter. I have created a Twitter list of people associated with East Lancs CCG. If you look on that list, there's several clinicians on there, doctors, nurses, several members of our governing body are on there. So I no longer feel like I'm sort of a weirdo on the edge of things. I think it was really helpful early on when I started tweeting back in 2011. It was great to be able to see there were some great examples of other GPs making good use of social media. I learnt a lot from following the feeds of people like Anne-Marie Cunningham and Amir Hanan, people like that. So there were some good people that I could follow and take some inspiration from to see what they were doing.
Follow-up as well. What reaction do you get from your patients? Because I mean, it's terrific that you're doing it. I really do. It's just from my experience, where I work, in the part of the world I work, it's not so common that GPs are using social media in quite the way you are.
I think the patients like how we use Facebook. So I've probably got more experience of patients commenting on stuff that we're putting on our practice Facebook page. So the patients aren't interacting with my personal Facebook page. As far as patients interacting with me on Twitter, we really don't have that many patients on Twitter. That may reflect the demographics of Nelson. So the vast majority of the people I'm interacting with on Twitter are not my patients. But we do have a practice Twitter account, and I do some kind of cross-tweeting between the two. So the patients do know that I have these accounts, but it's pretty unusual for patients to try and use the channel as a means of asking a question specifically about themselves.
I just say we've made a poll live on Slido, the code 4868, and the question is: would you like to engage with your GP on social media?
Stuart, can I ask you, following on, I'm here.
Yeah, hi.
Following on from that question, one of the biggest problems we had with GM Kim was getting professionals to go on the site and answer some of the comments that patients were asking. They didn't want to be followed by patients on Facebook. They were scared that they would be hunted down, and it was just such a really ridiculous myth. And when we actually went on Facebook to look at some of their accounts, they're all open to the public anyway, so these patients can find those people anyway. But I just wondered if you felt that you had been harassed by people, asking you questions through Facebook, because I think it's a myth that professionals feel that they are going to get, lots of people inundating them with health questions that outside of work, which is really quite bizarre.
I mean, generally speaking, there's ways of taking those questions offline. So if someone was to ask about something specific that's personal to them, that involves their personal health condition, I would always try and shift it as fast as possible into a different channel of communication. But that really doesn't maybe that happens about once every 6 months. It's really infrequent.
Results from Slido, 75% would like to engage with their GP on social media.
Cool. Thank you.